This is October 27th, 2012. This is the 6th episode of the Revolutionary Journal. You may have noted that I was not on last week. That was unfortunately just due to the general busyness of life and school and all that. However, the show should be on regularly, I'm hoping, from now on. And this upcoming Monday, we will be having Andrew Gavin Marshall on to talk about the technocratic governments that are occurring, have occurred in Italy and Greece, the embrace of science in the political sphere, and also the rise of the global scientific dictatorship, as he states in one of his articles that will be linked to in the show notes for today's episode. Today I want to talk just really about working outside the system, working outside the current structures and institutions that exist. Because for a while now, I've been consistently hearing you can't work outside the system, as if we have to go and work inside this framework that we are given. And really, if you think about working inside this framework, it really doesn't do anything but continues the status quo. Because if you decide to go and work within the framework and address your grievances in that manner, at least politically speaking, for the most part, your grievances will be disrupted and your grievances will be essentially watered down. Your demands will be watered down, and you will not have any way to really address them. It's going to be watered down, and then you'll be going to given what little some power will allow you to have, which I, on a personal level, think is unacceptable. And so, we really have to go and look at working outside the system, outside this current framework. So let's begin. Consistently, we have been indoctrinated from day one to work within the framework of the systems that society has deemed acceptable. If you have a problem, you're directed to the accepted avenues to deal with that problem. Don't like your political representative? Vote them out. Have a problem with not being able to protest? Go to the courts. The problem with this, especially from a political sense, is that there can be no real change to the system, rather only a reshuffling of the same deck of cards. Let's go back to the political representative example. Usually the argument is that if you don't like your current political representative, just vote for a new one. However, too many times, this only results in a change in the person you are unsatisfied with rather than legitimate change. In the United States, the choice is between Democrat and Republican. However, at the end of the day, both parties are one-percenters, to use common parlance. This is not to say that the entire system doesn't work or certain avenues don't work well. For example, if you have a problem with criminals, you should indeed call the police. Thus, we must learn ways in which we can operate outside the current system and take matters into our own hands and be able to empower ourselves. To begin our discussion, let's start with alternative currencies. To begin, one must first come up with a definition for what an alternative currency is. For that, let's cite Wikipedia, because why not? It defines alternative currency as, quote, any currency used as an alternative to dominant national or multinational currency systems, usually referred to as national or fiat money, unquote. One of the best parts about alternative currencies is that they can be created by anyone and for any reason. Usually, however, such currencies are created there was a major economic downturn. Alternative currencies are actively used around the world. A recent example is in Greece, people are trying to survive the ongoing economic crisis. Christian Science Monitor reported earlier this year that, quote, 5 years into the recession with 21% unemployment, some Bolis residents who were short on euros but long on other resources created a local currency called TEMs in Greek that is traded on non-monetary contributions into the online system. People who sign up for a TEMs network account see what services they might offer to other folks in their area who are in need instead of amassing credits that can be cashed in for things they themselves need. TEMs can also be used for everything from bakers to babysitters, teachers to technicians. In theory, the value of one TEM is equal to the value of €1. Unquote. Another example is in the United States, where more and more people are turning to alternative currencies. CNN reported in January of this year that, quote, while there are only about 20 active community currencies in the United States, while there were only about 20 active community currencies in the United States in 2009, there has been a recent resurgence with at least a dozen communities developing their own currencies the past couple of years, estimates Lauren Gatch, professor of political science at the University of Central Oklahoma, who researches these alternative currencies. In addition, currencies that have been around for years have seen a spike in interest, with membership doubling in some cases. Economic instability is on people's minds, said Gatch. Even state governments are exploring the option. Lawmakers in more than 10 states, including Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, Idaho, and Tennessee, have been circulating proposals into alternative currencies, many of which would be issued in the form of gold or silver coins. Unquote. The fact that people are looking into alternative currencies is a good thing, as the economic situation is not getting any better. Last month, the Federal Reserve engaged in some counterfeiting. I mean quantitative easing in the hopes of jumpstarting the economy. However, according to Ellen Brown, an attorney and the president of the Banking Institute, this will not work. She stated in an article last month that, quote, when Federal Reserve engages in QE, it takes away something on the asset side of the bank's balance sheet, government securities or mortgage-backed securities, replaces it with electronically generated dollars. These dollars are held in the bank's reserve accounts at the Fed. They are excess reserves, which cannot be spent or lent to the economy by the banks. They can only be lent to other banks that need reserves or used to obtain other assets, new loans, bonds, etc. Unquote. This money that the Fed gives to these banks cannot be used to lend to ordinary people, and this won't affect the economy in any way whatsoever, besides providing temporary effects on the stock market. Yet, while these alternative currencies are good, we must keep in mind that they are not perfect, and that they do have drawbacks. For example, many currencies cannot be used to pay off taxes or debts, as one could only use the alternative currency where it is accepted. Thus, this will make it quite difficult for people and businesses to go and begin to adopt that new currency in some fashion. Another problem is that if the money is not printed on quality paper and has enough security details, it could be easily counterfeited, thus causing massive inflation, and the new currency will end up being worthless. However, the most overwhelming task, even before worrying out how to get people to accept it or whether or not it has enough security details, uh, is to create a base of support for it and to begin thinking of ideas from what the currency should be named, to its design, and how you are going to get it printed. While this may be a large task, it does have multiple benefits. One, having a local currency will insulate yourself from the ongoing craziness and manipulation of your nation's currency. In addition to this, alternative currencies, according to Miyoko Sakashita, the director of a community currency project, Berkeley Region Exchange and Development, um, alternative currencies allow communities to diverse their economies, reinvest resources back into their region, and reduce dependence on the highly concentrated and unstable global economy. Each local currency system serves as an exchange bank for skills and resources that individuals in the community are willing to trade. Whether in the form of paper money, service credits, or the units, local currency facilitates the exchange of services and resources among the members of a community. By providing incentives for local trade, communities help their small businesses reduce underemployment by providing jobs for the community. In addition, the local exchange of food and seeds promotes environmental conservation and community food security. Local food production reduces wasteful transportation and promotes self-reliance and genetic diversity. Each transaction within a local exchange system shapes the community fabric as neighbors interact and meet one another. End quote. And really to go off, to digress a little bit and talk about the community fabric that was just mentioned, um, creating an alternative currency could be a good thing to strengthen that community fabric because today we find ourselves so insulated in our own bubbles and cliques in our worlds to the point where one may uh, know several people online, several people, within that little group, but will not even know their next door neighbor. Will literally have essentially never met them besides seeing them on the street from time to time. Uh, so, in addition to the reasons just mentioned, alternative currencies also are good as they will strengthen the community uh, togetherness. Such internal economic strength is greatly needed, especially in today's world with the economy being so uncertain. Creating a local currency allows one to begin the first, the first and possibly most important step to freeing themselves from the system that is slowly but surely collapsing. Another way we can go and begin to free ourselves is through education. By this I don't mean uh, going to schools and being educated, as that allows one to mainly consume straight state propaganda. When I say education, I mean self-education, taking the time to go and research and read up on subjects that interest you. However, I must admit that I am guilty consuming this propaganda, as I'm currently in college, majoring in political science. Moving on, though, in intellectually liberating ourselves, we have to realize where education is currently going. According to James F. Tracy, an associate professor of media studies at Florida Atlantic University, there's a push. There is a push for what he calls uh, a one-world schoolhouse. A recent article on globalresearch.ca, he stated that, quote, a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded online education service seeks to introduce and control a one-size-fits-all worldwide school curriculum. The strategy aptly fits alongside historical persistent schemes for restructured education en route to an internationally based technocratic order. End quote. This isn't surprising as we can see that over the past several decades, there has been a concentrated effort to push for greater and greater integration among nations with the advent of economic globalization, the creation of regional political/economic entities such as the European Union, and NAFTA. The NAFTA is much more on the economic side. Yet, back to the point of self-education. Personally, I feel that self-education is something that has been long forgotten and discarded since we have been so wired to embrace the educational system in order of going to school for 12 years, high school, then going to college and working till our dying day. However, this was before the rise of the internet, and now we have more information than ever before to access and educate ourselves. There are even several universities such as Harvard and Yale that offer free online courses. While you may not get an actual college degree, such courses can offer you a base to start with, and there one can do their own research and start to expand their own minds. However, I have to caution that Usually you're going to hear this, but I just have to caution that while there's a lot of great information on the internet, you also have to be very careful of where you get that information from. Uh, so personally, when I do my own research, I mainly rely on books and uh, news articles from mainstream media sources, um, reputable uh, organizations, and academic journals. Those are all good sources of information. Reputable sources of information. You don't want to end up on conspiracies.com, things of that sort. We just have to kind of be careful. And so we're getting back to the point once again. Um, the system of education, especially college, has been used as a tool of social control for quite some time. In the 1960s and 70s, elites began to worry about students becoming politically active and involved at their schools. Out of this worry by the elites came the Trilateral Commission's report titled The Crisis of Democracy. The Trilateral Commission, according to their website, was, quote, formed in 1973 by private citizens of Japan, Europe, European Union countries, and North America, meaning the United States and Canada, to foster closer cooperation among these core industrialized areas of the world with shared leadership responsibilities in the wider international system. Um, the crisis of democracy concerning uh, the educational system, specifically college, uh, in it, the Trilateral Commission stated, quote, in most of the trilateral countries, meaning Western Europe, North America, Japan, the past decade, there has been a decline in the confidence and trust which the people have in government. Authority has been unchallenged not only in government, but in trade unions, business enterprises, schools and universities, professional associations, churches, and civic groups. In, these, in the past, those institutions which have played a major role in the indoctrination of the young and their rights and obligations as members of society have been the family, the church, the school, and the army. The effectiveness of all of these institutions as a means of socialization has declined severely. Unquote. Thusly, these have admitted that colleges uh, and the education system in general is nothing but a tool of controlling people. However, for further analysis, let's go to independent writer and researcher Andrew Gavin Marshall in his article entitled Class War and the College Crisis, The Rise of Democracy and the Attack on Education. In it, Andrew Samuel Huntington, a political scientist and one of the principal authors of the Crisis of Democracy report, wrote that, quote, the essence of the democratic surge of the 1960s was a general challenge to existing systems of authority, public and private. And further, people no longer felt the same compulsion to obey those whom they had previously considered superior to themselves in age, rank, status, expertise, character, or talents. He explained that in the 1960s, hierarchy, expertise, and wealth had come under heavy attack. The use of language here is important in framing power and wealth as under attack, which implies that those who are attacking were the aggressors, as opposed to the fact that these populations, such as Black Americans, had in fact been under attack from power and wealth for centuries, and were just then beginning to fight back. Thus, the self-defense of people against power and wealth is referred to as an attack. Once again, that was a quote from Andrew Gavin Marshall's article, Class War and College Crisis, The Crisis of Democracy and the Attack on Education. Uh, Andrew goes on to note that, quote, Huntington, in his conclusions, states that the vulnerability of democracy, the crisis of democracy, comes from the internal dynamics of democracy itself, a highly educated, mobilized, and participant society, that what is needed is a more balanced existence in which there are desirable limits within a definite extension of political democracy. In other words, what is needed is less democracy and more authority. Unquote. Such authoritarian language should only encourage us to be wary of the educational system, or to, at the very least, start researching on our own while going to these institutions of indoctrination, as I do so myself. Please note that that phrase, institutions, institutions of indoctrination is not my own, it's not my interpretation, but rather is a quote from the aforementioned Trilateral Commission report, which will be in the show notes if you are so inclined to read it. Finally, we must get ourselves detached from the current political system and its false left-right paradigm. In the United States, the presidential election is soon to be upon us. We are led into the false narrative that there are only two choices, Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, both of whom are more similar than dissimilar. Getting past this choice, we must first realize there are more parties than just Republicans and Republicans. Recently, there was a third-party debate in which the Green Party, Constitution Party, Justice Party, and Libertarian Party candidates, presidential candidates, came together and debated, with the debate moderated in part by Larry King. And then they actually brought up real issues of real generally American people, such as war on drugs, poverty, and drone strikes. And I think that such issues like these are important and that we really need to give these third parties a chance and saying, oh, well, they aren't going to win anyway, so just forget about it. Because if you are voting for someone who know is not going to look out for you, or who you know has violated their oath of office and is not going to give you back your civil liberties, and is going to continue these horrible policies, in reality, what you're doing is you're endorsing those actions. Because if you know, for example, that Barack Obama does has continued drone strikes, and that those drone strikes, for the most part, don't kill terrorists. Rather, they kill children and generally speaking, non-terrorists. But you still go and have the nerve to vote for Barack Obama. You're actively saying, okay, I'm fine with that. In fact, I even support that so much, I'm going to vote for you again. We should not be doing that. We should be looking for alternatives. And these third parties are an alternative. Whether you think they're going to win, really whether the chance they're going to win or not is in a way irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that Republicans and Democrats, Romney and Obama, there is very little difference between these people. And that if you continue to play into the system as long as you decide to vote Republican or Democrat. Well, those are just some of the ways in which we can get ourselves out of the system. There are many more that are out there and have yet to be thought of. I wish you all the best of luck. That's all the time we have for today. See you next week.